The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive station called Zenith Prime where the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered. Ambassador Krell stood before the circular assembly, his forearms gesturing frantically as he spoke. The Vothari diplomat's skin flickered from blue to purple, a sign of distress among his kind. "You must listen to me," Krell insisted, his voice translator making his words sound harsh and mechanical. "The signals from Sector 19 are not natural. Something is coming." The other council members barely looked up. Most were bored, reviewing data on their personal screens or chatting among themselves. They had heard Krell's warnings before. He was always worried about something. A tall, crystalline being named Elder Scylla finally spoke. "Ambassador Krell, we have monitored that sector for 300 cycles. There is nothing there but dead worlds and silent stars." "That's exactly my point," Krell said, his voice rising. "The silence is ending. We detected a vessel. A large one. It's heading toward our space." This got some attention. Council member Drax, a being made of flowing energy contained in a ceremonial suit, leaned forward. "What kind of vessel? Pirates? Refugees? We don't know," Krell admitted. "But the design is old. Very old. It matches patterns from the Forbidden Archives." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. The Forbidden Archives contained knowledge of the ancient times, of species that no longer existed. Most council members believed those records were just stories, myths created to scare children. Elder Scylla's crystalline body glowed brighter. "You cannot possibly mean—" "I checked the patterns 3 times, Krell interrupted. "The vessel's design matches the old warnings, the ones about humans." Several council members laughed. Humans were a legend, a cautionary tale that parents told their offspring. According to the stories, humans were monsters who conquered entire star systems, who never surrendered in battle, who turned everything into weapons. But they were gone, extinct for thousands of years, if they ever existed at all. "The human myth again," Drax said with amusement. "Next you'll tell us they're bringing their war beasts, called dogs, and their planet-killing weapons." "Mock me if you wish," Krell said coldly. "But I'm sending patrol ships to intercept. If I'm wrong, we lose nothing. If I'm right—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Far from the council station, the colony ship Horizon's Dawn drifted through space. Inside, Captain Jake Morrison watched as the revival systems hummed to life. Thousands of cryopods began their wake-up sequences, bringing the colonists out of their 300-year sleep. Jake rubbed his face, feeling the stiffness in his muscles. The journey was supposed to take them to a fresh world, far from Earth's overcrowded cities and polluted skies. 300 years in frozen sleep, and they would wake up at their new home. "Captain, we have a problem," said Lisa Grant, the chief engineer. She was already at her station, reviewing the navigation data. Her face was pale. "What kind of problem?" Jake asked, though he had a feeling he didn't want to know the answer. "We're not where we're supposed to be," Greg Palmer, the navigator, said. He pulled up a star map on the main screen. "We got knocked off course, way off course." Jake stared at the map. They were supposed to be in empty space, in a region with no other intelligent life. Instead, the screen showed dozens of planetary systems, space stations, and what looked like established trade routes. "Are you telling me we're in someone else's territory?" Jake asked. "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Greg said. "And based on these energy signatures, they're technologically advanced. Very advanced." Amy Chen, the security chief, entered the bridge. She had been checking the ship's defensive systems. "Captain, our weapons are mining lasers and construction equipment. If we run into trouble out here, we're not exactly prepared for a fight." Before Jake could respond, the ship's sensors started beeping. 3 vessels were approaching, moving fast. They were smaller than the Horizon's Dawn but clearly military ships, bristling with weapons. "Incoming transmission," Lisa said. On the screen, a face appeared. It was Ambassador Krell's subordinate, Commander Vrex. He looked at the human ship with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Vothari space without authorization," Vrex said. "Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison, of the Earth colony ship Horizon's Dawn. We mean no harm. We were traveling to an uninhabited system, and were pulled off course. We request peaceful passage to continue our journey." There was a long pause. Jake could see Vrex talking to someone off-screen. When the commander turned back, his expression had changed. He looked scared. "Did you say Earth?" Vrex asked slowly. "Yes, Earth. We're a human colony ship." Jake couldn't understand why that simple statement caused such a reaction. Vrex's skin turned completely white, a color Jake had never seen before. The commander was clearly terrified. "Stand by," Vrex said, and the transmission cut out. Amy moved closer to Jake. "Captain, why do I get the feeling that telling them we're human was a bad idea?" "I don't know," Jake admitted. "But something's very wrong here." An hour later, Vrex's ship docked with the Horizon's Dawn. The Vothari commander came aboard with a small team of soldiers. They were armed but kept their weapons lowered, as if they were afraid to provoke the humans. Jake and Amy met them at the airlock. Vrex approached slowly, studying Jake like he was looking at a dangerous animal. "You're really human?" Vrex asked. "Not another species using their name? Not some trick?" "We're really human," Jake confirmed. "Why does that matter?" Vrex made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry of despair. "Because humans are supposed to be extinct. Or fictional. The Council has debated for centuries whether you ever existed at all." "Well, we exist," Amy said. 50,000 of us on this ship." Vrex stepped back, nearly stumbling. 50,000? Is that a problem? Jake asked. "Captain Morrison," Vrex said carefully. "In our oldest records, in the Forbidden Archives, there are warnings about your species, stories of wars that lasted generations, of human ships that hunted enemies across dozens of star systems, of soldiers who refused to die even when their bodies should have failed. Every child in the galaxy learns these stories as warnings about pride and ambition." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Commander, we're just colonists. We left Earth to find a new home, not to fight anyone." "I believe you," Vrex said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "But the Council won't. They'll see 50,000 humans and remember the legends. They'll see a threat that must be eliminated. Then we'll talk to them," Jake said. "We'll explain." Vrex's skin flickered through several colors before settling on a dark gray. "Because if you're not, the Council will send the Zelnar Hive fleet to destroy you. And if the legends about humans are true, that will start a war that could consume the entire galaxy." As Vrex left the ship, Jake turned to Amy. "Get everyone up. All 50,000. And wake up anyone with military experience first. You think it's going to come to a fight?" Jake looked out at the stars, at this strange part of space they had accidentally entered. "I think we just became the monsters from someone else's nightmare, and I don't know if we can convince them we're not." The Galactic Council met in emergency session, something that hadn't happened in over 200 years. The last time was when a plague threatened to wipe out the Torvan species. Elder Scylla stood at the center of the chamber, projecting images from the Forbidden Archives onto the walls. The other council members watched in silence as ancient text scrolled past, translated into their respective languages. "These records are over 10,000 years old," Scylla explained. "From the last time humans were encountered in this galaxy. According to these documents, they arrived in primitive ships, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Within 3 generations, they controlled 40 star systems." "How is that possible?" asked Council Member Drax. "They didn't conquer through superior technology," Scylla continued. "They won through persistence. The records describe human soldiers who would fight for days without rest. Ships that would chase enemies across vast distances, never giving up the hunt. They treated war like humans apparently treated everything else as a problem to be solved through sheer determination. Ambassador Krell pulled up another document. This is a battle report from the Third Expansion War. A human vessel, called Freedom's Torch, was disabled in combat. Its engines were destroyed, its weapons offline. The enemy considered it neutralized and moved on. 3 months later, that same ship appeared at the enemy's home world. The humans had repaired it using debris from destroyed ships and had traveled there on emergency thrusters that should have lasted only days, not months. What happened then? Asked a council member. The humans demanded surrender, Krell said quietly. When refused, they rammed their ship into the enemy's orbital defense platform. The humans all died, but they took the platform with them. That's when the enemy realized they couldn't win. Not against beings who saw death as just another tactical option. End quote. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Drax spoke. These humans, from the horizon's dawn, claim to be peaceful colonists. Perhaps the legends are exaggerated. I've spoken with Captain Morrison, Krell said. He seems reasonable, even friendly. But I accessed their ship's database while I was aboard. They have something called history books. I read them. The humans fought among themselves for their entire existence. Thousands of wars over 10,000 years of recorded history. They nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times, yet they survived every catastrophe they created. What are you suggesting? Elder Sela asked. I'm suggesting that Captain Morrison and his people might truly want peace, Krell said. But I'm also suggesting that if we threaten them, they'll respond exactly like the legends predict. We need to decide. Do we welcome them, quarantine them, or eliminate them while we still can? Back on the horizon's dawn, Jake gathered his senior staff in the conference room. More than 20 people crowded around the table, including several he hadn't expected to see. I didn't know we had military personnel on board, Jake said, looking at the 3 men and 2 women in old Earth Defense Force uniforms. Retired military, said Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez. We were colonists like everyone else, Captain. But, when we enlisted, we signed up for life. If you need us, we're ready to serve. Dan Cooper, who had been listed as a teacher in the colony database, cleared his throat. I should mention that I worked in diplomatic corps for 15 years before I retired. If you need someone to negotiate with the council, I have experience. Jake felt relief wash over him. Dan, you just became our chief diplomat. Lisa, how are the ship's systems? Lisa Grant pulled up a display on the wall screen. We're in decent shape. The cryo-sleep systems worked perfectly. The ship sustained some damage from whatever pulled us off course, but nothing critical. However, our weapons systems are basically non-existent. We have mining lasers that could cut through asteroid rock, but against military vessels, they're almost useless. Thanks for watching. The Jor. Can we change that? Amy asked. Maybe, Lisa said slowly. We have construction equipment, welding tools, and a lot of raw materials in the cargo bays. If we needed to improvise, I think we could come up with something. It wouldn't be pretty, and it definitely wouldn't be safe, but it might work. Greg Palmer spoke up. I've been studying the local star charts. The Vothari control this entire sector, but there are several neutral zones nearby. If we could reach one, we might be able to claim sanctuary under galactic law. Assuming they have something like galactic law, Amy pointed out. Before anyone could respond, the ship's communications system activated. Dan rushed to the bridge with Jake close behind. On the screen, Elder Sila appeared, along with several other council members. Captain Morrison, Sila said formally. The Galactic Council has reviewed your situation. We acknowledge that you entered our space accidentally and mean no harm. However, your presence creates a significant concern for galactic security. We just want to continue to our colony world, Jake said. We'll leave your space and never return. You'll never hear from us again. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Scylla said. The Council has voted to give you 72 hours to return to your origin point and leave this region of space entirely. If you do not comply, we will be forced to take action to protect our civilizations. Dan stepped forward. Elder Scylla, with respect, we just traveled for 300 years. We don't have the resources to make another journey of that length. Our destination world is only weeks away from here. Surely we can reach some kind of accommodation. The Council's decision is final, Scylla said. But Jake could hear something in the Elder's voice. Not anger, but fear. We cannot risk another human expansion. The legends. We're not legends, Jake interrupted. We're people. We have children on this ship. Families. We're not warriors or conquerors. We're farmers, teachers, engineers. We just want a home. Scylla's crystalline body dimmed. I believe you, Captain. But the Council has reviewed the historical records. They've seen what humans are capable of when threatened. That's why I'm giving you this warning. Leave peacefully in the next 72 hours, or the Xelnar Hive fleet will be dispatched. They number in the thousands. Your ship, no matter how resourceful humans might be, cannot stand against them. The transmission ended. Jake stood in silence, staring at the blank screen. 72 hours, Amy said quietly. That's not enough time to reach the neutral zones. And we can't go back, Lisa added. We used most of our fuel getting here. We'd need to harvest materials and process them into fuel, which would take months. Jake looked at his crew. Options? We could surrender, Dan suggested. Throw ourselves on their mercy. Maybe if we allow ourselves to be confined to a single planet, under their supervision. No, said Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez. Captain, I read the same history books Ambassador Krell did. I know what humanity is capable of, but I also know that we survive because we never give up, and we never accept chains. If we surrender now, we'll be prisoners forever. Our children will be prisoners. Are accepted. ND9. Are accepted. ND9. That's not the future we traveled 300 years to find. So we fight? Jake asked. 50,000 colonists against thousands of warships? Sam smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. We do what humans have always done, Captain. We improvise. We adapt. We turn every disadvantage into an advantage, and we show them exactly why their ancestors were right to fear us. Dr. Karen Wright, the chief medical officer, spoke up for the first time. I'm a healer, not a fighter, but I've studied human biology my whole life. We're not the strongest species that ever lived on Earth. We're not the fastest or the toughest, but we're still here because we're the most stubborn. We outlasted everything that tried to kill us. Jake took a deep breath. All right, Lisa, I want you to start converting every piece of equipment on this ship into something we can use to defend ourselves. Sam, organize our people with military experience and start training anyone who's willing to fight. Greg, find us every advantage this region of space can offer: asteroid fields, radiation zones, anything we can use. Dan, keep trying to negotiate, but don't accept any terms that make us prisoners. What are you going to do, Captain? Amy asked. Jake looked out at the stars, at the alien space that had become their home whether they wanted it or not. I'm going to send a message to the Galactic Council. If they want us to prove we're the monsters from their legends, then that's exactly what we'll do. Because the one thing those legends got right is this. You can't scare a human into surrender. You can only make us angry. The crew dispersed to their tasks. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn if the ancient warnings were true. The 72 hours passed quickly. Too quickly. Lisa Grant worked without sleep, converting mining equipment into weapons that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. The colony ship's cargo bay became a weapons factory, with civilians working alongside engineers to create defense systems from spare parts and construction materials. This is insane, Lisa muttered, as she watched a team weld plasma cutters onto rotating mounts. We're building weapons out of tools meant to dig wells and clear forests. Pete Sanders, one of the shuttle pilots, grinned at her. Yeah, but they'll dig holes in ships just fine. That's the beauty of human engineering. Everything's a weapon if you're creative enough. In another section of the ship, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez drilled volunteers in basic combat tactics. Most had never held a weapon before, but they learned quickly. Fear was an excellent teacher. Remember, Sam told a group of nervous colonists, you're not soldiers. You're survivors. That's better. Soldiers follow orders and fight fair. Survivors do whatever it takes to live another day. On the bridge, Jake watched the countdown timer tick toward 0. Dan Cooper had spent the entire 3 days trying to negotiate with the council, but every attempt was rejected. The council's position was clear: leave or be destroyed. Captain, Greg Palmer called out. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts. A lot of them. The main screen lit up with red dots. Hundreds of them. Moving in formation toward the horizon's dawn. The Xelnar Hive fleet had arrived. Amy whistled softly. That's a lot of ships. 237, Greg said. All military class. They're broadcasting a standard surrender message. Put it through, Jake ordered. The screen flickered, showing what looked like an insect the size of a human. The Xelnar commander's compound eyes reflected the bridge lights as it spoke through a translator. Human vessel, this is Hive Commander Zek. You have refused to comply with the Galactic Council's orders. Surrender now, and you will be relocated to a quarantine world. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Jake stepped forward. Commander Zek, we mean no harm to anyone. We're peaceful colonists who just want to reach our destination world. There's no need for violence. The Council has decided otherwise, Zek said. Its mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. Your species' reputation precedes you. We cannot allow humans to establish a foothold in this region. You have 10 minutes to surrender. The transmission ended. Jake turned to his crew. Opinions? We can't win a straight fight, Amy said. Not against those numbers. Then we don't fight straight, Lisa said. Captain, I've been thinking about the legends Ambassador Krell mentioned. About humans, never giving up, never fighting fair. What if we give them exactly what they expect? Jake raised an eyebrow. Explain. We make them think we're surrendering, Lisa said, pulling up a schematic of the ship. But we rig the horizon's dawn as one massive trap. We evacuate everyone to the mining colony on that nearby moon, and when the Xelnar ships get close to board us, we blow the fusion core, Jake finished. Take as many of them with us as we can. It's suicide for the ship, Greg pointed out. But not for us, Amy said, catching on. We survive on the moon, steal their ships in the confusion, and then we have actual warships instead of a converted colony vessel. Sam Rodriguez entered the bridge, having heard the plan through the comm system. It's crazy enough to work. The Xelnar are expecting us to either run or fight conventionally. They're not expecting us to sacrifice our own ship as a weapon. Jake thought about it for 30 seconds. It was a terrible plan. It threw away everything they'd spent 300 years traveling to preserve. But it might be their only chance. Do it, he ordered. We have 10 minutes to evacuate 50,000 people. Lisa, how long to rig the fusion core? 5 minutes, if I skip all the safety protocols. Then we have plenty of time, Jake said with a grim smile. Everyone, you know what to do. Let's show them why the legends exist. The colony ship became a controlled chaos of activity. Thousands of people rushed to the shuttle bays, heading for the transport ships that would take them to the moon. Lisa and her engineering team ran toward the fusion core, with equipment that would turn the ship's power source into a massive bomb. On the moon below, Beth Morgan supervised the landing operations. The moon had a thin atmosphere and several abandoned mining facilities that could provide shelter. It wasn't comfortable, but it would keep everyone alive. How many more trips? Beth asked, as another shuttle landed. 15, the pilot reported. We'll have everyone down in 6 minutes. Beth looked up at the sky, where she could see the Zelnar fleet approaching like a swarm of metal insects. Make it 5, she said. Back on the horizon's dawn, Jake broadcast a message to Commander Zek. We surrender. You win. Please. Just don't hurt my people. He made his voice sound defeated, broken. It wasn't hard. Part of him genuinely felt that way. They were about to destroy everything they'd worked for. Zek's response was almost kind. A wise decision, Captain Morrison. Prepare for boarding. My ships will secure your vessel and transfer your people to the quarantine world. You will be treated fairly. Thank you, Commander, Jake said, and cut the transmission. Then, to his bridge crew. How long until they're in position? 3 minutes, Greg said. They're moving in cautiously. They don't trust us. Smart bugs, Amy muttered. Lisa's voice came through the comm. Core is rigged, Captain. I'm on the last shuttle now. When you give the word, that reactor will overload in 30 seconds. Jake watched the Zelnar ships approach. They formed a perfect envelope around the horizon's dawn, ready to board from multiple directions. There were at least 50 ships within the blast radius. Everyone off the ship? Jake asked. You're the last one, sir. Amy confirmed. She and the remaining bridge crew were already in spacesuits, ready to evacuate to the final shuttle. Jake took one last look at the bridge. This ship had been home for 300 years, even if most of that time was spent in frozen sleep. Now, it would be a weapon. Let's go, he said. They ran through the empty corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind them, the ship's systems began to shut down one by one. Ahead, the shuttle waited, with engines running. Jake was the last to board. As the shuttle pulled away, he activated the detonation sequence. 30 seconds. Get us to the moon, he ordered. Fast. The shuttle pilot pushed the engines to maximum. Behind them, the horizon's dawn drifted in space, surrounded by Zelnar warships. The insect creatures were already docking, preparing to board. 20 seconds. Commander Zek's boarding parties entered the ship, moving through the corridors. They found it empty, except for the emergency lights and the soft hum of the fusion core. 10 seconds. One of the Zelnar engineers approached the core and realized what the humans had done. It tried to send a warning, but there wasn't enough time. The fusion core didn't just explode, it detonated with the force of a small star. The horizon's dawn vaporized instantly. The 50 Zelnar ships within close range simply ceased to exist. Another 100 ships further out were caught in the blast wave, their hulls cracking open like eggs. From the moon's surface, 50,000 humans watched in silence as their ship became a brief new sun in the sky. Did we get them? Someone asked. Beth Morgan checked her scanner. We got 73 confirmed kills. Maybe more, there's too much debris to tell. The rest of the fleet is in disarray. Jake stood at the entrance to the mining facility, watching the explosion fade. Beside him, Sam Rodriguez spoke quietly. The legends were right about us, Captain. We really are monsters. No, Jake said firmly. We're survivors. There's a difference. Monsters kill for pleasure. We kill because we have no other choice. He turned to face his people. Now comes the hard part. We need to capture some of those ships before the Zelnar recover. Lisa, can we fly their vessels? Lisa was already studying scans of the Zelnar fleet. Their ships use different interfaces, but the basic principles should be the same. Give me an hour with one of them, and I can figure it out. You won't have an hour, Amy said, pointing at the sky. 3 Zelnar ships are landing. They're coming for us. Jake smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Good. Let them come. They wanted to see what humans do when cornered. Beth, set up ambush positions. Sam, get your people ready. Everyone else, find weapons. I don't care if it's mining equipment or rocks. We're about to teach the Zelnar why every species in the galaxy has nightmares about us. As the Zelnar ships descended, the humans disappeared into the mining tunnels. They had no advanced weapons, no military training for most of them, and no hope of reinforcements. But they had something the Zelnar didn't understand: the absolute refusal to give up, and the creativity to turn anything, even a mining colony, into a battlefield. The legends were about to become very, very real. The Zelnar troops moved through the mining tunnels with confidence. They were veteran soldiers, trained in boarding operations and ground combat. They had fought rebellions on a dozen worlds. A group of scared colonists, hiding in abandoned mines, should have been an easy operation. They were wrong. The first squad disappeared without a trace. One moment they were reporting their position. The next there was only silence. Commander Zek, now commanding from orbit after losing a third of his fleet, ordered a second squad to investigate. That squad found the first one, or what was left of them. The Zelnar soldiers had been taken apart by mining equipment, heavy drills, rock cutters, and industrial crushers. The machines were still running, covered in biological material. They turned our arrival into a trap, the squad leader reported. The humans rigged the mining equipment to activate when we passed certain points. It's crude, but effective. Zek studied the tactical map. The humans had disappeared into hundreds of kilometers of tunnels. They could be anywhere. Flood the tunnels with soldiers, find them, and eliminate them. More Zelnar poured into the mines. But the humans weren't hiding, they were hunting. Sergeant Danny Coleman led a team of 20 volunteers through a service tunnel. None of them were soldiers before today, but they learned fast. They had to. Quiet, Danny whispered, holding up a hand. His team froze. Ahead, he could hear the clicking sounds of Zelnar mandibles. At least 10 of them, maybe more. Danny's team carried weapons made from mining tools. Nail guns loaded with metal spikes, welding torches that could cut through armor. One woman carried a tank of industrial acid. Another had a modified rock drill that could punch holes through almost anything. Remember the plan, Danny said softly. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stop moving. They have better weapons, but we know these tunnels. We use that. He triggered the trap they'd set up while the Zelnar were still landing. The tunnel lights went out. In the darkness, the humans moved with confidence. They'd been studying the tunnel maps while the Zelnar stumbled blind. The battle lasted 90 seconds. When the lights came back on, 10 Zelnar soldiers lay dead, and Danny's team had vanished deeper into the tunnel system. They left behind only scattered equipment and a message written on the wall in the Zelnar's own blood. Welcome to our home. On the surface, Jake coordinated the defense from a command post hidden in an old mining office. Reports came in from teams scattered throughout the tunnel network. Beth's team took out another squad, Amy reported. No casualties on our side. Sam captured a Zelnar officer, Greg added. He's trying to interrogate it, but there's a language barrier. Lisa burst into the command post, her face flushed with excitement. Captain, I figured out how to fly their ships. The interface is weird, but I can make it work. Jake felt a surge of hope. How many people do you need? A crew of 5 per ship, Lisa said. And about 10 minutes to teach them the basics. It's not complicated once you understand the principles. Then we're stealing their ships, Jake decided. Amy, pick your best teams. Lisa, get them trained. We need to capture at least 3 ships before Zek realizes what we're doing. The plan was audacious. While most of the humans kept the Zelnar forces busy in the tunnels, small teams would slip out, board the landed ships, and take them over. It was exactly the kind of crazy idea that shouldn't work, which meant it was perfect. Pete Sanders led the first boarding team. They approached the closest Zelnar ship, using the moon's rocky terrain as cover. The vessel sat in a crater, its boarding ramp extended. Only 4 guards stood watch. Lisa says the ship will have a crew of about 20, Pete whispered to his team. We take the guards quietly, then rush the bridge before they can lock us out. One of his team members, a colonist named Laura Banks, who used to teach history, raised her hand. I've studied human military history my whole life. Never thought I'd need to use it. But I remember reading about boarding actions in the age of sailing ships. The key is speed and aggression. Pete grinned. Professor, I think you just became our tactical advisor. They struck fast. The guards went down before they could raise an alarm. Pete's team rushed up the boarding ramp and into the ship's corridors. The interior was designed for insect creatures too small for comfort but manageable. Bridge should be this way. Lisa's voice guided them through their comm units. 2 corridors up, then left. They encountered 6 Zelnar crew members in the hallways. The humans had makeshift weapons, and surprise, the Xelnar had actual firearms and training. It should have been no contest. But the humans had something else. Desperation, and the willingness to get hurt, if it meant winning. They rushed the Zelnar in a wave, taking hits, but not stopping. By the time they reached the bridge, 3 humans were wounded, but all 6 Zelnar were down. Bridge secured, Pete reported. We have casualties, but nothing critical. Lisa, I'm at the controls. Walk me through this. While Pete's team learned to fly an alien warship, 2 more teams captured other ships. The Zelnar were so focused on the tunnel fights that they didn't realize their landing craft were being stolen until it was too late. Commander Zek watched in disbelief as 3 of his ships lifted off and turned their weapons toward the rest of his forces on the ground. Impossible, Zek said. They've been awake for less than a week in this region of space. How can they already fly our ships? His tactical officer had no answer. The captured ships opened fire, destroying 2 more Zelnar vessels before they could react. In the tunnels, Danny Coleman's team heard the explosions above. That's our signal, he said. Time to push them out. What followed was a running battle through the entire mining complex. The humans used every trick they could think of. They collapsed tunnels behind them, trapping Zelnar soldiers. They vented atmosphere in certain sections. They used the mining facility's industrial equipment as weapons. Most importantly, they never stopped. Every time the Zelnar thought they had the humans cornered, the colonists would attack from a different direction or simply disappear into parts of the tunnel network the Zelnar hadn't mapped yet. After 6 hours of fighting, Commander Zek made a decision that would haunt the Galactic Council for years to come. He ordered a retreat. This is not a withdrawal, he insisted to his remaining commanders. This is a tactical repositioning. We will bombard the moon from orbit and eliminate the human threat. But as his ships pulled back to bombing range, they found the 3 captured vessels waiting for them. The humans had spent their 6 hours not just fighting in tunnels, but figuring out how to use Xelnar weapon systems. The battle in space was brief and brutal. The humans had only 3 ships against over 100, but they fought with a recklessness that shocked the Zelnar. Human ships rammed Zelnar vessels. They fired at point-blank range. They used damaged ships as kinetic weapons, setting them on a collision course before evacuating the crew. Pete Sanders died when his ship's reactor was hit. His last act was to aim the dying vessel at a Xelnar command ship. Both exploded in a ball of fire. Laura Banks took command of another captured ship when its captain was killed. She had never flown a spacecraft before that day, but she adapted quickly. Using tactics from ancient Earth naval battles, she lured Xelnar ships into formations where they would hit each other if they fired. By the time the second battle ended, the Xelnar had lost another 40 ships. They retreated beyond the moon's orbit, unwilling to engage the humans further. On the moon's surface, Jake did a head count. They'd lost 300 people in the tunnel, fighting, and another 50 in the space battle. It was a tiny fraction of their total population, but each loss hurt. We won, Amy said quietly. She was injured, her arm in a makeshift sling, but alive. Did we? Jake asked. We destroyed our home. We killed thousands of Xelnar. We're stranded on a moon with limited supplies. This doesn't feel like winning. Sam Rodriguez walked over, covered in dust and blood. Captain, we survived. In human history, that's always been enough. We survive, we adapt, and then we figure out what comes next. Jake looked up at the stars, where the remaining Zelnar fleet maintained a cautious distance. What comes next is we make them understand. We're not going to leave this region of space. We're not going to surrender. We're going to take those ships we captured. We're going to learn everything we can about this galaxy. And then, we're going to make sure no one ever threatens us again. That sounds like a declaration of war, Amy said. No, Jake replied. It's a declaration of existence. The Galactic Council wanted to know if humans still exist. Now they know. And they're going to learn what that really means. Across the galaxy, in the council chambers, Elder Sila received the report on the battle. Over 150 Zelnar ships destroyed or damaged. A human colony that refused to die. And most disturbing of all, humans now flying Zelnar warships as if they'd been doing it for years. The legends were true, Sila said to the assembled council. Every word of them. The humans are back, and I fear we have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. 3 months passed after the battle at the moon. The humans didn't waste a single day. Lisa Grant worked around the clock, reverse engineering Zelnar technology. Within a month, the colonists had figured out not just how to fly the captured ships, but how to improve them. They added modifications the Zelnar had never considered, making the vessels faster and more efficient. It's amazing what you can accomplish when your entire species has a talent for breaking things and putting them back together wrong, Lisa said as she watched a modified ship complete its test flight. The Zelnar built these vessels to strict specifications. We threw out the rulebook and made them better. The moon colony transformed from a desperate hiding place into a proper settlement. The humans found water ice in the lower tunnels and set up hydroponic gardens. They converted mining equipment into construction tools and built actual living quarters instead of camping in abandoned facilities. But the most significant change was in the people themselves. The frightened colonists who had fled Earth were gone. In their place stood survivors who had fought an alien armada and won. Jake stood in what they now called the command center, reviewing reports from scout ships. The humans had been exploring nearby space, learning everything they could about their new neighbors. We've mapped 27 star systems, Greg Palmer reported. Most are controlled by various council species. But there are 3 unclaimed systems with habitable planets. Any one of them could support our colony. What's the catch? Jake asked. He'd learned that good news always came with complications. They're all in disputed territories, Greg admitted. The council claims them, but so do independent species. If we settle there, we'll be in the middle of existing conflicts. Amy entered the command center with news of her own. Captain, we just intercepted a transmission. The Galactic Council is sending a delegation. They want to negotiate. Jake felt a mix of emotions. Part of him wanted to tell the council exactly where they could put their negotiations. But the rational part knew they couldn't fight the entire galaxy forever. Tell them we'll receive their delegation, Jake said. But it happens on our terms. In our space. If they want to talk, they come to us. 2 weeks later, a council ship arrived at the moon. Jake recognized Elder Sila from the previous transmissions. With her came Ambassador Krell and several other council members. Notably absent was any Zelnar representative. The council delegation seemed nervous as they entered the human settlement. They looked around at the modifications the humans had made, the mixture of human and alien technology, the confident way the colonists moved about their new home. Captain Morrison, Elder Sila said formally, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Elder Sila, Jake replied just as formally. I assume you're here to demand our surrender again? No, Sila said, and she sounded tired. We're here because the council has realized something important. You're not leaving. Are you? No, Jake confirmed. This is our space now. We've claimed the 3 systems Greg found, and we're prepared to defend them. We didn't want this fight. But we're not running from it either. Krell spoke up. Captain, you must understand our position. The legends about humans, they're not just stories. Our civilizations remember what happened last time. Your species expanded through the galaxy. Entire cultures were absorbed or destroyed. That wasn't us, Jake pointed out. That was 10,000 years ago. We're different people. Are you? Krell asked. In 3 months, you've destroyed a significant portion of the Xelnar Hive fleet, captured and modified their ships, established a colony on a hostile moon, and are now claiming entire star systems. You're doing exactly what the legends said you would do. Jake thought about that. The ambassador wasn't entirely wrong. The humans had adapted to their new circumstances with frightening speed. Dan Cooper, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Elder Sila, Ambassador Krell, let me ask you something. What did you expect us to do? You gave us an impossible choice. Leave or die. When we chose to live, you attacked us. Every action we've taken since then has been in self-defense. Destroying our ship was self-defense? Sila asked. Yes, Dan said firmly. You sent overwhelming force against unarmed colonists. We responded with the only weapon we had, our ship. Was it extreme? Absolutely. But it was also necessary. Another council member, a being made of energy named Drax, spoke up. The question now is what happens next? You've proven you can fight. You've proven you can survive. But can you live peacefully with the rest of the galaxy? Jake looked at his senior staff. They'd discussed this moment many times over the past months. What kind of future did humanity want in this galaxy? Here's what we want, Jake said. We want the 3 systems we've claimed. We want to be left alone to build our colony. And we want a seat on the Galactic Council. The delegation reacted with shock. Impossible, Krell said. Council membership is earned over centuries of cooperation and trust. Then let us earn it, Jake said. But we earn it as equals, not as prisoners or refugees. We've shown you what happens when you treat us as enemies. Now let's see what happens when you treat us as potential allies. Sila was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said, there's something you should know. The Xelnar Hive has demanded revenge. They want to launch a full-scale invasion to eliminate you. The Council has been holding them back, but our authority is limited. If we grant you what you ask, the Xelnar may leave the Council alliance entirely. Let them, Amy said coldly. We'll handle the Xelnar the same way we handled their first fleet. There are millions of Xelnar, Krell warned. Your 50,000 colonists cannot stand against their full might. You're right, Jake admitted. We probably can't. But here's what will happen if they try. We'll fight. We'll lose, eventually. But we'll take so many of them with us that the Xelnar Hive will be crippled for generations. And then other species will see what it costs to fight humans. Is that really the future the Council wants? The delegation had no answer to that. It was Sila who finally broke the silence. There may be another option. The Kralix Dominion has been expanding aggressively in the outer sectors. They're a warrior culture, powerful and ambitious. The Council has been looking for a way to counter their expansion without starting a full-scale war. You want us to fight them, Jake said, understanding immediately. I'm saying that if a new species were to establish themselves in the systems you're claiming, systems that happen to be in the path of Kralix expansion, it might serve multiple purposes, Sila said carefully. The Council gets a buffer zone against the Kralix. You get your territory, and everyone gets to see whether humans can be trusted. It was a test, Jake realized. A dangerous one. But it was also an opportunity. We'll do it, he said. But on 2 conditions. First, you provide us with detailed information about the Kralix. Second, you publicly acknowledge our claim to those 3 systems. If we're going to be your buffer zone, you're going to officially recognize our right to be there. The council delegation left to discuss the proposal. They returned 6 hours later with an agreement. Humanity would get their 3 systems: provisional council membership, and access to basic galactic databases. In return, they would defend the region against Kralak's expansion. "This is a strange twist of fate," Krell said as they prepared to leave. "We feared you as monsters, so we tried to destroy you. You proved you were exactly what we feared, and now we're asking you to use that very nature to protect us from an even greater threat." "We're not monsters," Jake said quietly. "We're humans. There's a difference. Monsters destroy for pleasure. We fight because we have to, because we protect what's ours and the people we care about. If that makes us dangerous, so be it." After the council delegation left, Jake gathered his people. All 50,000 of them crowded into the largest cavern they'd converted into an assembly hall. "We have our colony," Jake announced. 3 star systems, officially recognized by the Galactic Council. "We're going to build the future we traveled 300 years to find." The crowd cheered, but Jake held up his hand for quiet. "But I need you all to understand something. We earned this through blood and sacrifice. We proved we could fight, but now we need to prove we can build. We need to show the galaxy that humans are more than just survivors and warriors. We're explorers, scientists, artists, and dreamers." Dr. Karen Wright stepped forward. "Captain's right. We've spent 3 months being what the legends said we were. Now we need to become what we want to be." Over the following year, the human colony spread across their 3 systems. They built cities on 2 planets and established mining operations on several moons. They traded with other species cautiously at first, but increasingly as equals. And when the Kralaks came, as everyone knew they would, they found something they didn't expect. The Kralaks sent a war fleet to claim the systems the humans occupied. Their commander, a massive being covered in battle scars, sent a simple message: "Surrender or be destroyed." Jake's response was equally simple: "Come and try." The Kralaks attacked with overwhelming force, but they found that the humans had spent the year well. They'd built defenses, they'd trained, they'd prepared. More importantly, they'd made friends. When the battle began, human ships fought alongside Vothari vessels. The Council had sent aid, not because they liked humans, but because they'd realized something important. If humans were going to be dangerous, it was better to have them as allies than enemies. The battle was fierce, but the humans won. Again, in the Galactic Council chambers, Scylla addressed the assembly. "We created this situation by treating humans as threats. They responded by becoming exactly what we feared. But in doing so, they also became what we needed: a force capable of standing against aggression. Are we certain we want them in the galaxy?" asked a council member. "Asks of Haim." Scylla looked at the latest reports from human space. They showed not just military victories, but thriving colonies, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges with other species. "We don't have a choice," Scylla said. "The humans are here to stay. The only question is whether we accept them as partners or fight them as enemies. Given what we've seen, I know which option I prefer." On the human colony world they'd named New Haven, Jake Morrison stood in a garden his people had planted. Real soil, real plants, real sunlight from a sun that wasn't Earth's. "We made it," Lisa said, standing beside him. "Against all odds, we made it." "We did more than that," Jake said. "We proved the legends were real. But we also proved we're more than just monsters. We're human. And that means we survive, we adapt, and we build. Always." In orbit above, human ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen other species. The galaxy had learned its lesson about humanity. The legends hadn't deceived anyone. Humans really were as dangerous as the stories claimed, but they were also capable of being so much more. And that was a lesson the galaxy was still learning.